Hi, everyone. I'm Kristi Johnson, your host of our podcast From Bump to Bond with Giving Tree Surrogacy. I'm so excited. Today we have our surrogate outreach manager, Caroline Gerber, joining us to talk about what the surrogate application looks like, kind of from start to finish, and hopefully ease someone's mind, if they are a little bit nervous about starting the process, where to begin, what it looks like, why are there so many steps. So thank you for joining. And Caroline, a little bit about you. When a surrogate first submits an application, she may be connected to you as the first voice that she hears. Can you kind of explain what that initial application looks like
Sure.
and how you end up as their contact person?
Yes. My team has the privilege of chatting with these women as their first point of contact. And the application is very straightforward. There's very basic qualification questions on there, Kristi, where, we're asking age, BMI, location, pregnancy history, just the most basic information we can gather so we can just make a quick decision on is this candidate qualified in the most basic way or not. For those qualified applicants, though, we reach out within 24 hours is our goal, just so that we have timely responses and just a quick intro, and we're inviting them to further the conversation, to gather more information. So it's just the starting point.
So you mentioned the initial application asking things like age, location, BMI. Can you explain why we ask those questions?
Yeah, of course. We follow ASRM guidelines, which is American Society for Reproductive Medicine, and that is our guiding light. So they outline what is a safe age range for women to pursue surrogacy? What is a safe BMI? And that's also outlined by IVF clinics that we partner with. So we are actually following their guidelines.
Mhm.
And then that is what has developed our application, those very basic questions.
Is there anything you wish that women knew more about as they started the application process before they got started? Anything that comes to mind?
That's a great question, Chrissy. I think the biggest thing is it's just a conversation. Fill out the application. Let's see if you're qualified. Let's have the conversation. See if it's really something that can fit into your life, something that you're ready to commit to see if it's a good fit.
Mhm.
There's no harm in having the conversation.
I totally agree. And I'm going to share a QR code right now. If this may be you, if this sparks a little bit of interest and you want to learn more, there's zero commitment to do that. You can scan this QR code here and apply and have a conversation with a team member like Caroline and see if this is something that can fit into your life. So, after someone submits an application, you typically reach out within 24 hours. What then? Once they respond to that outreach, where do they go from there?
Yeah. So next, we're going to have you fill out a little more information. So this is where we start to really dive a little deeper, ask some medical history information, see if there's any concerns that we should address, or truly if there's any further disqualifications that need to be identified at that time. So a little more paperwork, but again, it's not daunting. It's very straightforward. And then we'll host an interview. So we'll allow you to select a day and time that works best for the candidate. Um, and then we're going to chat. We're going to talk your support system, your work, your lifestyle, your pregnancy history, really getting to know the candidate. And that's the main goal of that. We want to know who you are in and out. And again, see if this is a good fit on both ends.
Yes, that's something I love about Giving Tree is that it really is a process to get to know each
Yeah.
surrogate, each intended parent, each egg donor as a person and their background. And there may be qualifying or disqualifying questions being asked, but it is a very personal process. And you develop those relationships and connections with those women right from the get-go.
Mhm.
Any standout moments? I know that you've said that you have certain connections and women will move forward on to other stages of the process and you reach out to them and touch base. Can you talk a little bit about getting those updates because of that initial connection that you had right from the beginning when they applied?
Mhm. Yeah, it really is a privilege to be in this position, getting to know these women from the get go. I mean, even on our interview, where it is, we're gathering a lot of information, but we're laughing. We're having a good time.
Right.
We're connecting in those different ways. And, I've caught myself sharing my own birth stories with these women and they're sharing theirs. And it's just this bond between fellow mothers, women who just know that carrying a child is the most incredible thing that you can do and challenging thing. And that bond starts to build quickly from that
Mhm.
beginning phase. And then seeing them progress throughout that journey, even though maybe they've been out of your care, so to speak, for months, and they're beginning an embryo transfer or confirmed pregnancy. I feel that joy for them even in that stage, and getting to reach out and say, oh my gosh, you've made it, you have a positive pregnancy, that's so exciting. That bond is really special.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a moment that you typically notice that sigh of relief of, oh, this isn't as scary as I thought, after they apply?
Yeah, I think during the conversation, a lot of women are able to let their guard down a little bit because
Mhm.
um, this process, it can feel like a lot. There's a lot of information up front that we're giving these candidates, and it can feel overwhelming. But I think when they can hear it broken down into the different phases, and knowing that personally my team is with them until they're successfully matched with intended parents, and feeling that level of support, you can kind of see by the end of that interview, there's excitement built. There's more of a readiness to move forward, and they feel the process has been humanized a little bit after
Mhm.
getting to connect with our consultants.
Yeah. And balancing that, just the paperwork and the things that they have to do as the surrogate, that you need from them, your team needs from them, but also educating them on the process and being there every step of the way is so vital. And once you have that conversation and start to build that connection and trust, I think that process just really smooths itself out, and they can let their guard down more.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
after the call, um, they, like you said, typically have a little bit more paperwork to complete. What does that process look like?
Yeah, we're continuing to gather the information. We've really tried to streamline everything. So we use a portal, which is super user friendly, but we're gathering and asking them more questions. We're building their file. But ultimately, it's to get them to one of the most important parts of this whole front end of the process: medical records. So, gathering medical records from OB, labor and delivery, and really assessing from their past pregnancies and deliveries if this is a viable option from them. It's
Mhm.
one of the biggest, I like to call them, data points that IVF clinics look at, that intended parents want to know about successful pregnancies and delivery history.
Mhm. Yeah. And gathering their OB and delivery records along with an OB clearance letter. That's something that we would provide for them to take to their provider and have them complete that. A lot of clinics do require that, to get that clearance that she can safely carry a surrogate pregnancy. And those medical records are such an important part of the process because they go to the intended parents, who they match with, their IVF clinic that they're working with. And so those, clinic guidelines can vary a bit, but like you said, the ASRM guidelines are kind of what guides the entire process for us. So it's not something that, if someone did have a complication that we don't think as an agency that they are an amazing candidate. It's that we aren't able to get a medical pre-approval, which is a requirement of the process to move
Right.
forward. Um, Aside from medical records, so their releases, the portal is so convenient. I love that option because, every surrogate is a mom. And so, life happens and she's busy. And so being able to log into that whenever she is able to, sometimes that's late at night. Other times it's early in the morning before the kids wake up and there's chaos and everything. So that she can log in anytime that she needs, and signs releases so that we can request medical records. There's a background check permission. Can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So we'll be asking for a background check for her and any partner that resides in the household. So again, like you said, ease of use. They log in, they can sign off on those releases. She can have her partner sign partner acknowledgement forms, and everything is encrypted and HIPAA compliant. So very safe and secure, because again, we're asking for a lot of sensitive information and we don't want that to be a barrier in candidates moving forward. So we've made it all very safe and secure. So yes, they can go in and out, sign everything they need to, so that we can get started on those medical records requests, running background checks, building your profile, all of the groundwork to get you ready for a surrogacy journey.
I love that because, we're asking for electronic signatures. It's not that she has to go to a certain location and get a background check done and it takes all day. So it's very convenient in the process. And so we've covered medical records, background checks. What other kinds of things are we requiring and requesting?
Yes, so we do ask for a virtual home tour as well in preparing to make a candidate ready to share with intended parents. And that is simply, we don't need to see that your kitchen is spotless. We don't need to see that all the laundry is done. We're just looking for a safe home environment. So that's an important step there, that, really we can tell intended parents when it comes time to matching that our candidates have been fully screened in every aspect, medically, socially, that we've talked about support systems, their day-to-day life, all of those things. So that is another element of that portal, is that virtual home tour.
What do you think is the most misunderstood part about the kind of lifestyle screening where we're talking about background checks and the virtual home visit? If someone says that's personal, why does that matter?
I think there's a misconception that judgment is being passed sometimes, Kristi, about what they do in their spare time or how they live their life, or choices that were made in their past. And that's just not the case. We are
Yeah.
truly looking at this person as a whole, and making sure this is truly a viable option for them to pursue this surrogacy journey, and that it's safe for all parties involved, for the surrogate, for the intended parents, and of course for baby. Safety is our number one priority, and that's what it all comes back to. Is it medically safe? Mental health, is it a safe option for that individual's mental well-being? Do they have the support that's required of a successful journey?
Mhm.
It's the whole person, and ultimately no judgment being passed. We want everyone who wants to do this, we want that for them too, but it
Mhm.
has to be a safe option for all parties involved.
Yeah, and I think part of the shift in this process that we typically see, I've seen many times and experienced it in my own surrogacy, is that it starts off as you're seeing this as an experience for yourself. And then after you apply and you start learning more and going through this, and things like a virtual home visit come up, it really starts to humanize the process, to understand that other perspective of the intended parents. And, I started to put myself in their shoes. What would I want in someone that is, seemingly a stranger to carry my baby? What are the things that would make me feel a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable? So I think we start to see the shift in women understanding and learning that. And it's such a beautiful process to see that, and everyone kind of coming together, and the give and take of a journey. So, because it can feel a little bit um, like a judgment on your lifestyle, or your weight, that you didn't lose enough baby weight, or just a lot of pressures and expectations on the surrogates. But the reason behind it being that we want this to be a safe and enjoyable experience for everyone.
Absolutely. Safety is our number one.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned a little bit about the support that we require. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, so support comes in many different ways. First and foremost, we look at partner support. If someone has a partner, are they on board? If they are not, that could be a make or break at times throughout a journey. There are partner expectations, background checks, participation in psychological screening, medical screening, if legally married, signing off on legal documentation. So there are some elements there for a partner. However, we see, and I think you can attest to this, Kristi, we see that women with the biggest support usually have the more successful journey. It's a good indicator of a successful journey.
Mhm.
And part of that is, do you have people you can call when you're having a really hard day? Do you have someone who can come over and watch the kids if you have to run out to an appointment? There's a couple times we do ask candidates to travel during this journey, once for medical screening, once for embryo transfer. Do you have support that can support you in doing that?
Mhm.
So we talk about the support system very early on in our conversation, whether it's between a partner or close family, friends, to ensure that they have the support needed to take on this big thing. It is a big undertaking. Um,
Mhm.
and so just making sure, it can even be close colleagues that you've identified as friends, or friends that have become family, but just really talking through, what does that support look like for each candidate.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing the most too is that you don't have to be married. I know we are asked that a lot. Am
Yeah.
I required to be married? Can I be single and be a surrogate? The answer is yes. And that support comes in various shapes and sizes. It can be coworkers, siblings, your parents are nearby. You have an amazing neighbor that can stop by and help with kids or whatever that looks like. And so it's nice that there are options and with women that are married, that the spouse, for legal purposes, does have to participate, and or if they're partnered and living in the home, like you said, the background check. There could be medical screening, like lab work, that they would need to agree upon, and so we do have partners sometimes that aren't sure, or women aren't sure how to even bring it up and feel nervous about that. How do you help support women that are not sure how to bring up the topic and get their support team on board?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. My team does always offer a follow up call. So, if we have that initial interview or video call, and this topic comes up of some hesitation with the partner, they are always more than welcome. Let's sit down. They can hear the information firsthand. They can ask their questions, because it partners, I do think, have a different perspective coming into this than the candidate, and they may bring up concerns that maybe the candidate didn't think through on their own, or didn't think to ask during our conversation. So it's always an open invitation to have partners. Let's schedule that second follow-up call. Let's text, ask me the questions, but being here as their support on this end, and allowing them to think through that support system and talk to their support system and bring questions back to us, and we're relaying back and forth. That's what we're here for in that preliminary stage, is to field all the questions from everyone involved in the process and ensure that they really do have those pieces in place before moving forward.
That's so nice that you offer that. I know we've even had um, husbands of previous surrogates that have been willing to share their experience with others that are coming into the process new, to all of it. And so it's just nice to see that everyone's open to sharing information, because it is a lot. The surrogate is going through a lot of the paperwork and trying to make sure that she stays up on all of her tasks that she needs to complete. And sometimes it's hard for people to explain all of the steps and provide all the information. So your team is there to offer that guidance and that extra information and support that she might need. So that's lovely. I'm going to add this QR code again if this is something that you are interested in learning more and would like a direct link to apply to become a surrogate. You can scan this QR code. I think it will also be in the show notes for you to access the application and apply today. So after medical records are gathered and reviewed, background checks are done, supports confirmed. What next?
So, and I think this is the fun part. We will build your profile, which is using photos of you, your family, really demonstrating the lovely candidate that they are, the warmth that they bring, their passions in this journey. So we'll build the profile on our end, and then we will actually share that profile with them. So there is no question in their mind what is being shared and put out there about them. Even if it's I don't like this picture in this spot, you got it. We'll make
Yeah.
sure that they're very, very comfortable with that. And so building the profile, kind of a final confirmation call, reviewing what's to come with matching and everything. And then we do make the candidate ready to match, which means our matching team is ready to share that profile with intended parents who work directly with us, IVF clinics, partner agencies. I mean, everyone. So lots of opportunity for matching, and matching's a really fun and exciting process.
It really is. And the profile, I love seeing the profiles because it really is. It takes me back to the time. I don't know if you remember as kids, there there was a time that surveys were really popular. Do you remember like it'd be like what type of bread are you? Like just the most random topics. And I would always want to submit those surveys and just to see it all come together because they've completed this paperwork, and some of the questions are pulled from different various forms that they've completed and may have even forgotten that they completed
Mm-hmm.
and submitted photos. And so to see the finished product that the team has put together is such a beautiful part. I love that. And it asks them, it does include their location, just
Yeah.
city and state, or just state, their BMI, just first name, last initial. So it is still a private version of them and summarizes their pregnancy histories, their deliveries. And then it also gets into some fun questions of things that you guys have learned on the outreach team,
Mm-hmm.
about them, of what types of foods do they like, what kind of music do they like, what does their day-to-day look like. So that's just such a fun, um, get to know you
It
thing.
is. It is. And it's truly just a snapshot of that candidate. And so um, I think pictures are so important, really representing who you are, and trying to add a little flair here and there where they can in their answers. And again, just making sure they feel really confident in what's being presented about them.
Mhm. And what types of intended parents they're open to working with too. That's something that you talk about. And you talk about some of the heavier topics that someone may not really expect to talk about after applying to become a surrogate, like their views on termination. And so all of those things do play a part into what types of intended parents we would present her profile to. And we want everyone to feel comfortable in a match. So we don't want to be sharing intended parents with a surrogate or vice versa that they aren't open to working with
Absolutely.
that person. So all of that goes into it. And then what is the matching process? I know that you know you your team will stay with the surrogate until she's officially matched. Can you touch a little bit about that? Touch on that. And just to confirm, they do have a matching specialist that is working behind the scenes and kind of aligning them with potential intended parents. But from your perspective as her support team member, through that process, what does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. So something I've learned as I've continued my work in this industry, and particularly with Giving Tree, is our matching specialists are very hard at work, not just sending out a profile with hopes of, it's not like casting a line when you're fishing and hoping you get bites. That's absolutely not what they're doing. They are very intentional on
Yeah.
how they are sharing those profiles. So if they see a new profile come through and they immediately think, oh my gosh, this would be a great fit for so and so, and they're sending it to them and getting feedback. And so it's very intentional, which I really, really love, because I think that's a misconception with the matching process is we just send it out and we're crossing our fingers and we're going to go with whoever is interested. That is absolutely not what's occurring. And so our match specialists are hard at work finding a good fit for our surrogates, and on the other hand, finding a good fit for the intended parents as well. Once there is interest in a profile, we get the pleasure of sharing their first intended parent profile with them and seeing if there's mutual interest on their end as well. If there is, a match meeting will be set up, and it's very, very, I'd say casual. It's very exciting, but it's low pressure, I should say.
Yeah.
So our match specialist will be on the line with both the intended parents and the surrogate, and it's an opportunity, really, an opportunity to ask questions, find out what's really important to each other in this process, make sure that there's alignment on certain big topics.
Mhm.
Um, and then afterwards, we do ask for feedback and potentially confirming or not confirming a match.
And how do you manage if a surrogate is taking a bit longer to match? How are you managing those expectations that this process, we've seen it go from there's a potential match or alignment that happened within days of
Yeah.
moving into matching, and sometimes it's a bit longer of a wait. And how do you help women through that process that can be a bit stressful, or there's a lot of anticipation?
Yeah. I like to remind my candidates it really has nothing to do with them or how wonderful of a candidate they are, their beautiful attributes, all these different. It is that we don't have the perfect fit for them at that
Mhm.
moment. So really, I think it's hard not to take it personally sometimes if you're super excited to get to this phase and all of a sudden there's kind of a lull, this hurry up and wait kind of feel.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with them. It's that we don't have the right intended parents for them at that moment. But again, our matching team is wonderful, and a lot of the times, if we have candidates waiting a little bit longer, they'll circle back and make another effort at, okay, we haven't looked at these candidates in a little bit. Let's send them to this IVF clinic we've built a new partnership with, or we have these new intended parents that just onboarded. So efforts are constantly being made, but just that reminder to our lovely candidates that truly waiting is not a reflection on their qualities, what they bring to the table. It's just that we don't have the right fit right now.
Hmm. And usually I know that's the time that I hear from your team that they're checking in and seeing what kind of updates are going on in the surrogate's life,
Yeah,
that you've learned about her kids or her job, or some type of hobby or project that she's been working on. And so it's nice to have that connection and that time to kind of check in with her and see how life is going in the meantime.
absolutely. The last thing we want when a candidate gets that far in the process is for them to feel like they've lost touch with us or that they're just not getting any information. So we do make an active effort, whether it's feedback that we've received on a profile or, checking in on their kids, how the holidays were, all of those different
Mhm.
things. We do make an active effort to keep engaged there.
Is there anything that surrogates tell you that they didn't expect to feel or go through throughout that process, from the time they applied to the time they match?
Hmm. No. um,
That means that they're really understanding what the expectations are, and feeling very prepared.
yeah.
And I think sometimes I think once surrogates start to see a profile or profiles, um, that they're surprised by the journey the intended parents have been on. Um, I think that kind of stands out in that process. And I know that women feel like sometimes it's a lot of steps for them to go through to get to that point, but then they have that feeling of, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And these are real people, and I'm seeing a profile of someone that I can seriously be a part of changing their entire worlds, which
Yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think the gravity of how big of a deal this is, of the gift that they're going to be giving someone, it becomes more real each step that they make it through.
Yeah.
Um, and that can be a really beautiful thing. Some candidates who have made wonderful surrogates started this process by simply saying, I'll fill out an application, see where it
Yeah.
brings me. And then all of a sudden, it's like they blink, they've gone through all these steps, and they're being matched with these lovely intended parents, and they have a confirmed pregnancy. So
Yeah.
um, truly, I think the gravity of, you're going to give someone the gift of life, like, once that sets in, that's pretty cool to see. And that, I think that does happen more around that matching phase of, oh my goodness, this is really happening.
Yes. Well, Caroline, if someone was looking to or was curious about starting this process and had that little nudge in their heart, what would you want to say to them?
Yeah, just apply, reach out, see
Yeah.
see where it could take you. I think that's the best thing you can do. One, it's empowering to have the knowledge of, do you qualify, do you not, and we'll
Mhm.
have that conversation with you. We'll be very open and transparent. That's how I like to approach every situation with my candidates. It's just transparency, honesty. Let's figure it out together. Let's see if this is a good fit. Let's have the conversation. Um, so I think that's the best place to start. Just apply. Let's see.
And here's that QR code again that you can submit your application and learn more. And it's a journey. It's really a journey from the time of application to delivery. And we're here every step of the way. And so it's such a remarkable experience. And you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know all of the things. And that's what the team is here for. So if you feel that little nudge on your heart, just submit the application. And it's such a beautiful experience. Take that next step and see where it goes. So thank you again for joining us on our podcast at Giving Tree Surrogacy from Bump to Bond. Thank you, Caroline Gerber, our surrogate outreach manager, for joining today and just sharing your heart and your insight. I really appreciate you being here. And we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you, Kristi.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might find it just as thought-provoking.